the ancient mother culture might have known how to soften stone? Is it possible that thousands of years ago, ancient cultures possessed a now lost technology that allowed them to soften stone? We see this in the construction of not only ancient Europe, ancient Israel, but especially South America. According to numerous researchers, the answer is yes. They did know they did have the technology allowing them to soften stone. So is it possible that the countless megalithic sites around the globe were built with the help of now lost technology of this type of construction? What if in the distant past, ancient cultures from South America, Asia, Egypt, and other parts of the world had in their possession an ancient method that allowed them to transport, cut, and mold megalithic stones to their desire? There are numerous inexplicable sites around the globe, and the most noteworthy to mention are Stonehenge, the Pyramids of Giza, Ollantaytambo, Pumapunku, and Sacsayhuaman. In all of these places, ancient mankind managed to somehow perfectly place huge blocks of stone weighing hundreds of tons. The construction of Sacsayhuaman remains a profound mystery for researchers who have failed to understand how ancient people managed to quarry, transport, and place these megalithic stones. These marvelous stones are so heavy that modern-day machinery would hardly be able to move and put them into position. And so we ask, is it possible that ancient cultures in Peru and Bolivia had a technology, quote unquote, that allowed them to modify stone and soften it? This would have allowed them to modify and construct huge structures without the need of modern-day tools. According to a number of researchers like John Peter de Jong, Christopher Jordan, and Jesus Camara, some of the granite walls in Cusco are the ultimate evidence that ancient cultures managed to heat different stones at a very high temperature. This unknown process vitrified, that means it turned into glass, the surface of the blocks, turning them into giant glassy and smooth structures. Based on these and other observations, Jong, Jordan, and Gamara concluded that ancient man possessed an advanced device which allowed them to melt stone blocks, which were then placed into position, allowing to cool down next to hard jigsaw polygonal blocks that were already in place, forming an extraordinary puzzle that defies rational understanding today. The end product was perfectly molded stone, and it would remain fixed against other stones in a nearly perfect manner, giving an impression as if these megalith stones were melted into position. Once fixed, these stones were so precisely placed that not a single sheet of paper could fit in between them. However, researchers like Jong and Jordan believe that not only did cultures in ancient Peru and Bolivia possess the technology of melting stone, they believe that evidence of similar technology can be found all over the world. If the ancients did in fact have the ability to soften the stone, it would certainly explain the countless ancient structures belonging not only to pre-Inca and Inca cultures, but also to the Mayas, Aztecs, and Olmecs that inhabited Central and South America. Before disproving the theory that the ancients had in their possession sophisticated means by which they softened stone, consider that many of the ancient complexes in the Americas bear incredibly strange markings that could be explained by tooling the surface while it was still soft, quote unquote. Some of the stones we are discussing are truly immense and are nearly impossible to maneuver into position using today's technologies. Also, it's important to consider that many ancient Inca sites have stones and walls that have up to 12 and 13 perfect angles on their visible surface. Below that and the hidden sections, these stones redefine the word perfect. Better yet is the fact that even with today's extremely advanced technology, it is impossible for engineers and architects to replicate walls such as those found at Sacsayhuaman. In the book Exploration, Colonel Fawcett tells a story of how these incredible stones were softened. He says, all through the Peruvian and Bolivian Montana, Montaña is to be found a small bird like a kingfisher. It makes its nest in neat round holes in the rock escarpments above the river, and these holes can plainly be seen, but are not usually accessible, and strangely enough, they're found only where the birds are present. I once expressed surprise that they were lucky enough to find nesting holes conveniently placed for them and so neatly hollowed out as though with a drill. They make the holes themselves. The words were spoken by a man who had spent a quarter of a century in the forest. He says, "I've seen how they do it. Many a time. I've seen the birds come to the cliff with leaves of some sort in their beaks and cling to the rock while, like woodpeckers to a tree, while they rub the leaves in a circular motion over the surface. Then they would fly off and come back with more leaves and carry on with the rubbing process. After 3 or 4 repetitions, they dropped the leaves and started pecking at the place with their sharp beaks, and here's the marvelous part, they would soon open out a round hole in the stone. Then they'd go off again and go through the rubbing process with leaves several times before continuing to peck. It took several days, but finally they had opened out holes deep enough to contain their nests. I've climbed up and taken a look at them, and believe me, a man could not drill a neater hole." Do you mean to say that the bird's beak can penetrate solid rock? No, I don't think the bird can get through solid rock. I believe, as everyone who has watched them believes, that those birds knew of a leaf with juice that can soften up rock till it's like wet clay, end quote. This is from Ancient Code on Humans Are Free. I'm sorry, but I don't believe that the ancients did it this way, with the green leaves that contain some kind of chemical that could soften rock. Look at the size of these rocks. I don't believe that that was the actual way that they did this. I'm sure there was some kind of other technology, perhaps sound, the frequency and the vibration of sound. What do you think? Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.